As men, without men being in the society, like, we're the ones who built the roads. We're the ones who built the buildings. We're the ones who was exploring to even find new land and territory, right? We're the ones who were the scientists. It's men are vital to society. And what we have to do, especially as young African American men in here, we got to really lock in and understand the value that we hold so that we can really not, let me say it like this, so that we can really push our community and push our families ahead and not behind. Strong families make strong communities make strong nations.
Welcome to the plug.
So every now and then, what we do is we have something that's called the locker room, right? And we're going to have real locker room talk. And we're really going to talk about the good, the bad, the ugly. We're going to really, hold on, ladies walking through, especially her. Get out of here, Kenya. This is like a safe space. This is an area that we could be vulnerable in. Sometimes, be honest, sometimes y'all be putting on a little front because the girls be there, right? Like, fellas be putting on fronts when girls be there, right? Like, you trying to, there are a couple cute ones, whatever it may be. But in this environment, we just want to be real. We want to be authentic. And, Sean, if you could get two of them mics and hand them, Clay, you could as well. Let me get them for our guests real quick. So I brought some guests with us today. Right here, we got Mr. Desmond McCain. Where you from, Des?
Marietta. Marietta, where it's better.
Marietta is not where it's better. Cobb County. Y'all from Cobb County, right? Clay, yes, you are.
He from Cobb County.
He from Cobb County. All right, yeah, you can tell. You can ask my mama. Oh, Paulding County. All right, Paulding County. All right. And this is, it's all right, Clay. It's all right. Hey, listen, man.
It's okay to be from the suburbs.
We don't care. We don't care about that. We also got Jimmy Moultrie as well. Jimmy, where you from?
College Park is where I grew up at. Went to school at the home of the state champs, Sandy Creek Patriots. It was my high school. Anybody know what Sandy Creek is? They got a state championship in basketball and football this year, just a little drop.
Yeah, it was real controversial for the football, but real controversial. But y'all did win it. Yeah, that is crazy. Well, I'm excited to jump in for today. How many of you all play sports? Who plays sports? Who ever been in the locker room before when guys be talking, right? Yo, in the locker room, guys be talking real greasy, don't they? Like, I mean, real reckless in the locker room. Like, when I played basketball in college, like, the locker room was where, it would get real raunchy in the locker room, right? You talking about everything. And so, of course, we're not going to be on the ratchet side, but we want to be on the side where we could really talk about locker room type of stuff, where we could really chop it up about some things. Y'all know we've been in a series called Holyship. Somebody say Holyship. And throughout the series, we've been talking about relationships and things like that. But today, we're going to add a little spin to it. Men are the most important human being to society's success or failure. Did you all know that men are the most important humans to society's success or failure? Does that mean that women are not important? No, not at all, right? I love my mama, right? I love my auntie. I love my grandma, right? My sister, my wife, all of that. But it's men who are the most important to society's success or failure. Without men, a lot of stuff would not happen that's supposed to happen. Let me be quiet because they're going to be judging me if I say that, right? However, it's the truth, right? God created who first? Who? All right, let's try that again. God created who first? Right? And so Adam is really the foundation. Who came from Adam? Right? And so Adam is actually the foundation of human society, a man. And so what we want to talk about is how to help you all become men, because y'all ain't men yet, y'all young men, right? But we want you all to be men that actually build things in life. I got a couple stats, a couple videos, just like the importance of a man, especially in society today. Y'all check out this first one real quick, and y'all listen to the numbers. I thought that this was crazy right here. Y'all listen.
Let me continue. 90% of all homeless and runaway children, 63% of teen suicides, 85% of children and teens with behavioral disorders come from fatherless homes. Let me read that stat one more time. 90% of all homeless and runaway children, 63% of all teen suicides, 85% of children and teens with behavioral disorder come from fatherless homes. That is a very, very big.
90%? 90% of all homeless and runaway children are from a fatherless home. 63% of people that commit suicide come from a fatherless home. Like, that right there already shows you the importance of a man, right? Like, it's good. You know, mothers are great. However, you all growing up to be the men that you're supposed to be is so important. I got another stat for you all as well. Let's play a couple more of them real quick.
Likewise has a direct link to teen pregnancy and sexual activity. Roughly 70% of teenage pregnancies come from women raised in a fatherless home. 70% of teenage pregnancies comes from fatherless homes. 70%. That's a big number.
That's a lot. That's a lot right there. 70%. That is a whole bunch right there. Let's do that next one, and then I'll let that one be the last one, and then we'll get ready to jump in.
Have significantly higher abortion rates than women raised by both a father and a mother. On the whole, fatherless kids are 20 times more likely to be incarcerated and 11 times more likely to exhibit violent behavior than children from two-parent household. 20 times more.
So when a man isn't in the home of his children, there's like a higher opportunity for things to go left, right? And so that's one aspect, but then we got another aspect as well. As men, without men being in the society, like, we're the ones who built the roads. We're the ones who built the buildings. We're the ones who was exploring to even find new land and territory, right? We're the ones who were the scientists. It's men are vital to society. And what we have to do, especially as young African-American men in here, we got to really lock in and understand the value that we hold so that we can really let me say it like this, so that we can really push our community and push our families ahead and not behind. Strong families make strong communities make strong nations. And so it starts with a strong family. Somebody say strong family. Somebody say strong family. Men are meant to build. But oftentimes in life, things tear us down. And there's something that we're going to kind of talk about today that can kind of tear us down as men, even though it feels good and it sounds good, and we always talk about it as a good thing for a lot of people. However, this thing has been ruining people for years. This person has been really tearing down generation after generation. His name is Dick, and Dick has been ruining people. Like, thinking with your lower head has been ruining people and generations and societies for years. However, today we're going to talk about how to control that, right? We're going to give you some keys to kind of control that so that we make the right decision. Somebody say right decision. Somebody say right decision. All right, 1 Thessalonians 4:3 says this. Y'all listen to this scripture. How many people want to know the will of God for their life? Like, how many people want to know what God's will is for you? Like, you want to know, like, God, what is it that you want me to do? Yo, this scripture tells you right here. This is one of the most important ones right here. Sean, listen up. It says, for this is the will of God for your sanctification, that you should abstain. Somebody say abstain. Abstain from sexual immorality. Question, y'all talk to me. What does it mean to abstain? To what? To control? To fight against? What else? What does it mean to abstain? Do without? I like that. What else? Be set free from? All right, I could take that. What else? What does it mean to abstain? You don't know? You never heard that word? Who's never heard that word? All right, cool. Good. Abstain. If I wanted to abstain from eating candy, that means that I'm going to go without eating candy. I'm not going to do it. It just means to pretty much to hold back, to keep off, right? And so the scripture says that we are supposed to abstain from sexual immorality. That word sexual immorality in the Greek, it's the word porneia, which means porn. It says that we're supposed to abstain from anything that's like related to porn, right? So like anything that's related to that, we're supposed to stay far away from it. You know, in the scripture, God tells us as men to fight against everything. Stand strong against this. Fight against this. Go take it, you know. But this is the only thing that the scripture says to abstain. It says to run away from this, right? So you got to be really aware that we running away from this because that really is the will of God for your life. Then it says this, that each of you should know how to possess his own vessel in sanctification and honor, not in passion of lust like the Gentiles who do not know God. This scripture is saying this, that people who don't control their lust, those are people who don't really know God. We're supposed to be the opposite. Control ourselves, all right? Control ourselves because we got the Spirit of God living on the inside of us. And so I brought these two gentlemen here today. I brought Des and I brought Jimmy today because we kind of want to, I want to introduce you all to their stories, to their lives, to different things that, decisions and things that they have made, and hopefully we can learn from the decisions of other people. Remember last week I was telling you it's wise to learn from other people instead of learning from your own mistakes, right? It's better to learn from other people's mistakes than to just learn from your own mistakes. It's good to learn from your mistakes. It's better to learn from other people's mistakes, all right? So, Des and Jimmy, they both have something in common, right? Well, they both from Georgia. They both black. They both got beards. Well, thicker beard. But the thing that they have in common is they both have children outside of wedlock, right, at a young age. Both of them did. And so, like, we kind of want to hear their story. We kind of want to learn from their story. And we kind of want to see what the Word of God has to say regarding decisions that they made, decisions that, you know, and how they would move forward in that decision, all right? And so this is, y'all open to ask questions throughout this time. Y'all open to really chop it up. But I want y'all all to hear a little bit about what happened. So we'll start off with Jimmy real quick. This is actually my brother-in-law right here. He married my sister. He's a real good, solid individual. At first, I didn't like him because I came home one day, right, to visit I'm at my parents' house, and I see a Crown Vic on 24s or 22s, right? Right. What was it? 22s, right? And I'm like, and a guy, you know, like, whoa, who is this picking up my sister, right? Like, you're going to pick my sister up in some 22s and a Crown Vic? Ain't nothing good about him. right? That was real judgmental. That was real judgmental. It was really bad, but hey, but Jimmy's actually a real good, solid individual. I shouldn't have judged him by his car, all right? I shouldn't have judged him by his vehicle. But, Jimmy, if you could just tell us a little bit about your story, especially pertaining the situation that we just kind of talked about real quick. If you want to give a little background, Jimmy, tell us what's your profession really quickly.
I'm a police officer.
Hey, y'all clap it up for the police. Clap it up for the police officers. All right.
Yeah, so I guess getting started, yes, I am married. I have 2 daughters. I have I have a 10-year-old and a 3-year-old. My 10-year-old is my firstborn, obviously, and that was outside of wedlock, right? So before I was married, I had her, okay? So that's where we're gonna kind of pick up at and start at. Make sense? Any of y'all had kids? No? Cool.
Me.
So I'm talking to the right crowd. Because what I would like to happen is kind of like what Nehemiah was saying, y'all will be able to learn from, I don't want to say a mistake because my daughter wasn't a mistake, but I could have went about the situation differently, if that makes sense. Y'all get what I'm saying? So I was in the Army at the time. I had met a female who, we started going together, hanging out, everything that comes with that, dating. And then we were having sex. So it took about, maybe 3 or 4 months that I had known her. I was at a spot in my life that I'll say I was, I don't know, I don't like to put titles on things, but let's just say I was at a point in my life where I was pretty low, okay? And I felt as if in the Army, me going back overseas, because I had just came back from Afghanistan, me going back overseas, I was possibly not going to come back. Make sense? I was going to die, right?
Oh, okay.
Because I had seen a lot of guys that I was with die, a lot of people that I served with, okay? So with that being said, at that moment in my life, it only took about 3 or 4 months of me knowing this girl where I ended up having her daughter. Like I said, outside, we weren't married, we were only dating. And everything that kind of came with that afterwards made me look back on that situation and say, man, I really, really wish I would have went about that differently. Y'all kind of feel what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So things that come with that, such as, if you're out here, if you're having sex before marriage, trust me, God designed it in a way that, because I'm able to see it from both sides, right? God designed it in a way that you wait until you're married, then you have a child, because it's a total difference. Looking at both of my daughters and my day-to-day life, I now have to deal with court payments because, between me and her mom, issues of, okay, who's taking care of this, child support issues, which is taking money out of your home. Now every other weekend, my daughter is going with her biological mother, so therefore that's taking away time and things that I want to teach and instill in my daughter. And also you got 2 different people basically raising, 3 different people now raising one child. So therefore things that I'm teaching her, her biological mother may teach differently, but me and my wife are on the same accord, right? We're teaching the same values, we're instilling the same things. But could you imagine if you took all week to, say, work on a project or build a project all week, and then you have to give that project away to somebody else who's under a totally different curriculum, and they have to then work on that project and give it back to you? And then, could you imagine how that would be? And we're all working towards the same goal. So, hopefully I was able to illustrate that in a way that kind of makes sense, and throughout this we can talk some more, but that was my story.
Yeah, that's good. Question really quickly. How many of you all, you got a girl or somebody that you're talking to? All right, one hand. All right, so we got, all right, four people? How many of y'all got? Oh, 5 people? How many of y'all got somebody that you see and it's like, I would want to talk to her? Let me see. A couple more hands up. Some of y'all nah, I'm straight right now. All right. Another question. How many of you all, your parents are no longer together, like your biological parents aren't together? Let me see. Okay. How many of you your parents are together? Your parents are together? All right. It's about like half, a little less than half, a little less than half. So some of you all have actually dealt with that before, right? How many of you you've dealt with that, like having to go with one parent for one weekend or for the summer, and then you have to go with another parent, right? And so what Jimmy was saying was like so valid because that can be very challenging for not just for the parent, but I'm sure even for you all as well. Is that challenging for you all? It was for a little bit?
Yeah.
Nah, not at all. Some of you all feel like, would you rather be with your mom or your pops? Mom all day? Okay. All right. All right.
So that's a great point. I forgot to add. Don't feel no type of way about it because that's how I grew up, right? I grew up with just me and my mom for a long period of my life where it was just us. My dad was out and about in a whole nother state. I'll see him when he come in. He'll send me some money, give me some clothes or whatever. But that's where I came from. So it's important to understand that it's not really on you as a child. You just kind of getting pushed and pulled in either direction. But for you guys as young men, it's important for you to think about that because it's always better if you just wait until you're married and you're able to set up for that child, a two-parent household. Make sense?
Yeah,
but,
got it.
Don't feel no type of way if that's the way it is because that's how I grew up and I'm good now. So.
Amen. So we'll jump in a little more into your story in a little bit. I want to ask you a couple questions about it. But Des, you have a similar story as well. So if you could, tell us a little bit about you and your situation, your story. What's your profession?
Got you. So my profession, my profession is I'm an accountant. I'm a CPA. So basically, I count other people's money and keep track of it. My story. So I have a son. I have a 13-year-old son. He doesn't live with me. He lives in Colorado with his mom. And then I have a 4-year-old daughter who I have with my wife. I've been married for about 8 years now. But yeah, so I have my son, though, obviously firstborn. I had my son when I was in freshman in college. I was actually towards the latter end of my freshman year in college. But my story is, so throughout high school, I was a really good kid. I'm gonna brag on myself a little bit. I was a really good kid. I was pretty smart, I had a nice little GPA, you know what I'm saying? So all throughout high school, good. I was on a straight and narrow. I played basketball. But my senior year, I met a girl. She had a little edge to her. You know what I'm saying? I was always a good kid around the nerdy people. I was around the nerds. She was one of those ones that, she was around the cool kids. She had a little edge to her.
What do you mean by edge to her?
She would skip school. She was drinking. She was actually, so I was a senior. She was a sophomore. But she was like already drinking. Like skipping school.
Yeah, that boy Matthias said, dang, like senior and sophomore.
Yeah, I was a senior, but she was straight back in the day. She was straight, so.
All right, go on.
Of course, that has something to do with it too. We'll get into this because we're gonna talk about being unequally yoked.
Yeah.
And really understanding the person that you're with. So one thing we'll talk about is really dating should be reserved for when you're getting married. Really, truly, you should be getting to know the person to get married. But so when you're doing that, you really get to know someone. You get to know their family. You get to understand them. Me, I was lied to, so I didn't know she was a sophomore. I thought she was older than what she was.
Matthias like, okay, that's better now.
She was very manipulative, a very manipulative person. She lied a lot, which I didn't find out till later, but that's what I thought. Okay, cool.
So were you dating her for marriage?
No.
You didn't think that was like your wife or anything?
I wouldn't say that. When you're in high school, and I'm sure some of y'all may be going through this now, y'all possibly will go through this. I feel like a lot of times in high school, you're blinded. You think you're in love. It's like your first love. You may lose your virginity, whatever the case may be. It's probably not the case. Trust me. Everything in high school, you're not going to be the same person that you are as you get older. And that's something that I quickly found out. I found out when I graduated high school. When I went to college, I was like, oh, like, you know, it's locker room talk. It's going to be a lot more girls that you see when you get to college, a lot more stuff that you see, and everything is going to totally change. So,
Okay. So real quick, did you feel like the girl that you were talking to, like she was potentially your wife, or?
No, that was the mistake I made. I wasn't dating for a wife. I was just dating for somebody to talk to, and you know, dating for somebody to kick it with type of thing. But I was not dating looking for a wife.
Okay. Just curious. All right, go on, Des. Finish your story.
so that was a good point. So, thought I was all in love, you know what I'm saying? We had this relationship, so we probably started our relationship in the middle of my senior year. But my life just totally took a downturn once I started dating her. Like, stuff just became absolutely hard. So I grew up with both my parents, you know, definitely had a great, great parents, great childhood, but everything just took a downturn for me. GPA was dropping, you know, schools that I was supposed to get into to go to college, it just wasn't happening, blah, blah, blah. So, you know, I was dealing with that relationship, and then I ended up going to college. Like I said, things totally changed when I went to Kennesaw State. I was like, no, this is crazy. Like, why am I with you or whatever? We ended up breaking up. So I think we broke up. So I dated her from like November of my senior year in high school or December of my senior year in high school up until I think August of when I started college. So really, in the grand scheme of things, a really short relationship. Well, unfortunately, I ain't gonna say unfortunately, because again, children are not a mistake, but on Christmas, I get a text message. It's like, yo, I need to talk. We need to talk. And mind you, we had broke up in like August. I hadn't even seen her, talked to her. Like, it was totally like, you know, our relationship wasn't the best. So it was totally clean break. You know, we hadn't really talked. I get a text message. Yo, we need to talk. I already knew what it was.
You already knew?
I knew what it was. What you
Dang.
texting me for? Like, I knew what it was.
On Christmas Day, though.
On Christmas Day, yeah. I was with the family. We was out of town. I get that text message. I had to look at my mom, and I'm like,
Dang.
So I think I called her immediately. I was like, yo, just tell me what it is. You know what I'm saying? Like, what's up? You know what I mean? So end up finding out. She's like, she's pregnant. That was like, you know, again, 4 months later, I'm like, you know, shoot, I got caught up. You know what I'm saying? Had to tell my parents. That was a very hard conversation. So
Yeah, I bet.
so we'll get into it more, but that's where my story begins.
Okay. All right. Interesting. So throughout you all's time span of even, you know, getting pregnant, going through this situation that you all were having, I'm sure there were some challenges and some things that you had to deal with your baby moms that could be difficult, that people may not really think about like that. When you're just young, you're in high school, you just trying to catch a nut, really. Like, you just trying to get a body. You're not thinking far ahead about potential problems and circumstances that could happen. And I know that you all have some interesting situations where it's like, yo, if I would have did it God's way and waited, right, I could have avoided some of the pain that came from this person that I laid down with, who isn't my wife, right? And so if you all could just talk a little bit about maybe what are some of those things that people may not think about that could be challenges with the lady that you sleep with, you know, especially specifically to you all's stories. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I kind of already alluded to it with raising a child, how tough that can be, teaching two different things. One other thing, for instance, is a birthday that my daughter had. Her mom, she was supposed to just be going with her mom for a birthday, you know, so we went, dropped her off. Hey, okay, she had a cake and everything, right? She pulled out a cake. Oh, this is a birthday cake. Can you take a picture of us with the cake? Happy birthday, Jaylee, XYZ. That was the last time I saw my daughter for the next 4.5, 5 months. She just took her. And I'm like, hold on, she got school, you know, next week. And all of this is supposed to be coming up. I got a household. I got another child who's looking, where's my sister? So, you know, just things like that. Ended up having to travel up to North Carolina, go to court and things like that, just to try and get my daughter back or get custody back of my daughter.
So what I'm hearing you say is almost like you had the birthday, you were expecting to get your daughter back. Right. It was almost like, I know that's her daughter as well, but it sounds like that was almost like kidnapping in a sense, right? Like you weren't expecting her to take your daughter for that long, and she ended up taking her. Like that had to be interesting for your mind, for everything, what's going on in that situation.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting right there. Des, I know that you had some as interesting, actually, with the birth of your child.
Exactly. So my story, it actually, so I think as you all get older and you meet people and you learn every other person's experiences, some stuff is different, you know. This is, you know, we were talking about the decisions that we made, and sometimes you make these type of decisions and they don't end up bad. You know, you do end up with someone that you may not be married to, but they're a good person. They really do their due diligence and do a good job of trying to co-parent and help you raise the child, right? Me, unfortunately, I'm on the worst end of that spectrum. I'm on the very bad end of that spectrum. So when I found out, again, like I told y'all, I found out that, you know, my son's mother was pregnant. We was like a little period of time, we tried to work it out, but we quickly realized this wasn't gonna work. You know, it was just gonna be, we're gonna have to co-parent. But unfortunately, as it got closer to my son being born, things became contentious, became worse, right? So when my son was born, I actually didn't even know he was being born at the time. I actually had to call the hospital to find out what hospital she was at to even show up to make sure I was there when he was born. And so that's kind of how.
Like she didn't tell you?
Like she didn't tell me. Like she just went to the hospital on her own. She wasn't gonna tell me. I had to like do investigative work to figure out where she was at, how to be there, right? End up being there. He was born, signed all the paperwork. But like soon we left the hospital, I kid you not, I wanted to come see my son maybe like 3 or 4 days afterwards, and hit her up, was like, yo, trying to set up a time, and she basically told me like, I'm not letting you see him. She basically told me, if you want to see your son, you're gonna have to take me to court.
Dang.
So from day one,
your seed, like that came from your nutsack, and you can't even see him. That has to be challenging, though. That has to be tough.
Yeah. And so I was 19 at the time. 19 at the time dealing with this. You know, again, you know, this is something super new to me. I'm trying to figure out like what I'm about to do. I'm still in school. Am I gonna have to drop out? You know, there's quite a few times I was like, maybe I should join the army. Like I didn't know what to do at this point, you know. But yeah, so basically on the phone with her, and she literally was like, yeah, I'm gonna let you see him. You're gonna take me to court. So within like 2 months of him being born, so his first 2 or 3 months of him being born, I didn't see him or whatever. Had to go to court. Had to, you know, pay the court fees. And so that's another thing. So how we talk about like a lot of decisions lead to other things. I had to like start taking out student loans in addition to not only paying for school, now to pay for court. It's like when you're talking about a lawyer, you're 19 and the lawyer's like, yeah, I'm gonna need $3,000 up front. I mean, I was 19. I worked at like Outback Steakhouse. So I was like a busboy.
Wait, like 3 bands up front?
3 bands up front.
Just to talk to him?
Just to get the case started. Just to file the paperwork.
Oh, dang.
You know? So that was like, you know, that was like, whoa. So like when we talk about how these decisions lead to other things, like again, I had to start taking out student loans or whatever. I'm in debt right now because of that and just going overboard because I had to, you know, take care of myself or whatever.
How many of y'all got 3 bands in the bank right now? Not adults. I hope y'all do. How many of y'all got $3,000 in your bank account right now? Anybody? 3,000? About to? 2? Man, and that's what it takes to just get. You have to pay more after that, right? That's just the upfront fee. All right.
But,
just interesting.
So yeah, so just
that's not diapers either.
Yeah, that's not diapers or anything. So basically, from day one, I had to do that. And then when you take yourself to court, you had to put yourself on child support. So that's another thing. So I had to put myself on child support.
Dang.
And then they wanted buku money. I'm like, bro, I'm 19. I don't have no job. Like, shit. Like, and then on top of that, The last thing I will say about like that whole initial situation is, for whatever reason, I think all of us are black men in here, and then my son's mother, she's mixed, so she is half white. But going up there, standing in front of a white judge, he told me that I was only going to be able to see my son 3 times a week. So for the first 6 months of his life, I was only able to see him 3 times a week for 3 hours a day, but in a public place, supervised. I never had a criminal record. I never did anything wrong in school. I wasn't no gangster or nothing like that. But he told me that I had to see him in a public place for 3 hours a day for the first 6 months of his life. So I would literally be in Town Center Mall watching a 3-month-old sleep while his mom is on the other side of the food court watching me.
Dang.
In college.
Not even at your parents' house?
Not even at my parents' house.
You got to be in the mall. Like,
In the mall.
that's, okay. Yeah, public place. That's interesting right there. I know that we had a question over here. You had a question? You could give him the mic real quick.
Did you get a paternity test?
No, we didn't. I don't think we did one back then. But it's definitely my child, though.
Okay.
Yeah, it's definitely my child.
Yeah.
He's definitely my child. But no, we didn't do one back then, yeah. I knew it because when I found out she was pregnant, she was like 5 months pregnant. So it was like, she just didn't tell me. So, because we had broke up in like August. I think she told me in December. But she was like, when she told me, she's like, yeah, I'm 5 months. I'm like, oh.
So just as a transparent moment right now with just the fellas in here and stuff, like when you were engaging in these sexual activities with these young women, where you are like, oh, I'm good because I'm protected, you are just raw dogging, like, and didn't care, you like, I'm gonna just use the pull-out method, like, was that in your mind, or was it just like, man, I'm just doing whatever, I'm just living?
Well, I'm gonna go first on this one because I was younger. Because I think we was at the same age, right? How old were you?
Oh, yeah. I had to have been about 20, maybe. Yeah, about 20.
But you was in the military, so you was probably a little bit more mature.
I joined when I was 18, so it was still during
Definitely
that.
more.
It was like a college phase.
He's trying to make an excuse for something.
I'm not making an excuse. I'm just saying, I'm gonna go first. Yours is different.
All right, go on.
But yeah, for me, so I lost my virginity to this chick. I lost my virginity when I was a senior, so 18. But like, I ain't understand protection. From day one, it was just boom. Like I ain't know what I was doing. I wouldn't think about none of that. You know what I'm saying? Which was absolutely idiotic. Like, probably should have got pregnant a lot sooner. But apparently, I think when she lived with her parents, which is when we started dealing with each other, I think she was on birth control. So, which kind of saved me, luckily, because I could have had a kid in high school. But I think when I went to college, she ended up getting kicked out or something like that, out of her mom's house, something like that. But I think that's when she got off birth control. And that's when the timeline started to make sense. When she got off birth control, she was living with me, with my roommates, and stuff happened. But
Okay. Got you.
Stupidity.
You was
Stupidity.
just...
I was dumb.
Yeah, no, for me, it was no protection. Protection wasn't involved. Protection was pull-out method, was what I was more or less going with. But, I mean...
I got you.
Everybody in here is clear on how that works.
I don't know. We don't got to go into the details of it.
Just
Well,
saying what,
yeah, so pretty much his method was, I'm not going to ejaculate inside of the young lady, right? I'm going to pull out before. And so over time, that's not even a good, honestly, if we're being completely honest, even using a condom is not a safe method, right? It's not a safe method for a lot of different reasons. And so let me just go through those real quick, because I don't know why I feel like I should talk about this to y'all real quick. But this is why the scripture says that we should abstain from sexual immorality. It doesn't say that you need to protect yourself by using a condom, because there's a lot of condom babies that are here. Probably some of you all, right? Could have been a condom was there, but that doesn't protect things all the time. Condoms bust. But even a condom can't protect you from sexually transmitted diseases. They can't even protect you from spiritual transmitted diseases, right? Like, can I say this to y'all? I guess so. I think it's, yeah, I can. It's cool. But don't believe the lie of as long as I strap up, I'm going to be good. That's not true at all. As men, our sacs are very porous. They're the most porous part of our body. They're able to, like, a woman's secretion can get onto your sac and you can get an STD just like that, right? Like, just like that easily, even if you're wearing a condom, right? Like, that's not the protection that you need. This is why the scripture says that you need to abstain from all sexual immorality. Because it starts off with just somebody showing you something on the phone, right? I'm sure that wasn't the first time that you all ever did anything, right? Like you all, I'm sure you saw something before. You probably was talking to other girls. You heard something. Like it doesn't just happen like that. It happens by stages, right? It happens by stages in life. Somebody showed you something on the phone. You're like, ooh, what is that, right? So then now you start researching it. And that research starts to lead to more research. Now you start whacking off. Now after you whacking off, now it's like, man, I'm trying to find me a girl to get with. It always leads to more and more and more. And further and further and further. Even after you have sex, that doesn't satisfy that craving of your lust. Because now it's, how many bodies can I get? How many times can we have it together, right? It just gets worse and worse and worse. And so as young men, you will have to be aware of what your eyes are looking at now, what your ears are hearing now, what you're watching now is so important because, and that's with anything in life, it always, whatever you do, it just, you get more of an attraction towards it. And so that's why it says abstain from all sexual immorality. Yes, sir.
Just to even point to the part where you said the spiritually transmitted disease. I'm not married, but I'm currently practicing abstinence. But before I did, when I was engaging in intercourse, there were times where I'm a normally laid back, calm individual. But there was this one time when I dealt with this woman who was a complainer. She always complained about things, and everything always got to her. When I engaged in intercourse with her, after a while I noticed I started to become a complainer. I started basically acting like her. So what ended up happening was I was actually taking on her personality just by engaging in sexual intercourse, because I was always around her before we had sex. I never took on her personality. I was always me. But I noticed that as time went by, I had to stop myself and saying, why am I always complaining? Why am I always acting like that? This isn't me. And then I stopped and looked, and I was like, it's because of the woman I'm dealing with. So when you talk about spiritual transmitted disease, it's like you actually start taking on the person you're engaging with, which is why the Lord even wants you to abstain until you're with your wife, because you literally pick the right woman to exchange with, and you know what you're taking on from her is actually good and not toxic.
Exactly. I got you. You had your hand up. It just reminded me of something, Jimmy, that you were saying. Yeah, you could take it back there to him. Jimmy, you were talking about, when we were talking about knowing the family, right? Well, I think that was you, right? You were talking to a little bit about that, like knowing the family of the person.
And it's funny because if you listen to my story and their story, there's a lot of similarities in there, or at least when I'm listening to him, I can think about it, but he kind of alluded to it as well. But you don't know someone until you truly know their family or know where they come from. Does that make sense to y'all? Like, so you may know a female from school, XYZ, whatever, dipping and dodging her parents, but that should never be the case if you're dating with a purpose. If you're dating looking for a wife or date the way it should be, then you need to know their family. You need to go and meet their mom, meet their dad, because when you meeting them, when you watching, looking at them, you picking up on, okay, y'all ever heard the saying, the apple don't fall too far from the tree? Or is that kind of old school? Y'all know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Exactly. So with that being said, you want to know what are some tendencies, what are some things that you notice, what type of lifestyle are they living? How is it over their house? What are they listening to? Because if I would have did my homework and I would have seen that, it would have automatically been like, nah, never mind, I'm good on this.
I'm not. Yeah, that's true. Even something with me and Eliza, when we were talking and dating, when I went to visit her family, I'm looking for stuff. Like, you got to be aware, guys, of red flags. Like, you got to be aware. And some of y'all might not be thinking about marriage or stuff right now, but I'm praying that when you all do get to that point, some of this stuff pops back up in your mind, right? Like, you should be aware of those things. Like, Jimmy, how are they talking? What are they listening to? What are they watching on TV? What are they doing? Like, what's fun for them to do? I'm looking to see how clean they are, right? I'm looking to see because those things translate over, right? Usually, if the parents' house is always dirty, she's probably going to be dirty. And what if you all may not think about this right now, but what if your parents are clean, their parents are dirty? When you all get married, you know how many arguments you're going to have? Do you realize how many arguments you're going to have over some stupid, it's not stupid because I don't like dirty stuff at all. But, you know how many arguments you can have over stuff like that? Right? And so you need to pay attention to those small details because that means that she's going to raise your kids to be dirty as well. And now that's even more and more and more things going on. Okay.
I want to add to their point about the red flags. So in my situation, I seen all the red flags. I did meet the family. I started to realize different stuff. I started to see the manipulation, the lies, what was going on. So to their point, when you do see red flags, pay attention to them, honor them. Don't be blinded by the fact that, someone I'm dealing with is a dime piece to you, or you feel like you may not ever get someone that looks like this ever again, or, blah, blah, blah. Don't be blinded by those things. Pay attention to the red flags. Act accordingly because there is someone else out there who will check all the boxes. You feel me?
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point.
What's up, fellas? Hey, this is not my question, but I'm glad that you said that. And if we have time, I would love to hear y'all's opinion, all three of y'all's opinion to the young guys in here. Speak about what red flags, even at this age and older, that they should be staying away from. So I wanted y'all to, if y'all can think of some, I would love to hear some of y'all's opinions, especially with all y'all being married men now and have had sex prior to marriage, and tell the guys about some red flags. But my question for y'all is, I think we've been honing in on the repercussions of sexual immorality. We've been talking about repercussions being having a child out of wedlock. But I would love to hear y'all's opinion about, or even y'all's comments, because all of y'all are married now. Even though you had a child out of wedlock, you got married after that, had a child. I would love to hear y'all's idea or perspective or even opinion about what are some things or challenges that you have been faced with just in the sexual category with your current wife based off of the previous actions of having sex before being married. Does that make sense? And I can word it differently I know it might be a little off.
I think I get what you're saying.
Nehemiah, if you can help me out, it might not be.
Yeah, I think I understand what you're saying. So we kind of alluded and talked about this before, right? Mm-hmm. Where where it is better. God wants to protect you from your memories. He wants to protect your memories. Oftentimes, this is why God tells you to do certain things like abstain, don't have sex, blah, 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 right? He wants to protect your memories. And remember, we was even talking about with the little Q&A and stuff last week, how what if, fellas, you're sleeping with this girl or multiple girls, and it's just man, that joint was fire. She was fire. She was doing all type of stuff, right? And then you're doing this with multiple girls. And so now you're comparing multiple girls, right? And then you get married to the one that God has called you to be with, and maybe she's a virgin and she ain't never experienced nothing. Like, and that would be the ideal situation. If I could go back in time, I would be a virgin, she would be a virgin, right? And we would both just be virgins. We don't know none of the past experiences or anything, because that can be a hindrance to somebody's marriage. Now, while you engaging in activity with your wife, when it's just supposed to be you and your wife, now you thinking about your ex. Now, Shanae popping up in your head while you with your wife. And it's like, that's not how God intended for that to be at all. And now you're actually lusting over past situations with your right now wife. God wants to protect you from your memories so that you don't even got to think about any past situations, because you ain't have no past situation. Only situation that you had was with Jesus, right? You and Jesus, you read in the Bible with Jesus, right? And so that when you all do come together, now you ain't got nothing to compare it to, none of that. But some of you all might have made the mistake already. The thing that you do now is stop, right? I know that sounds easy or simple, but it may not be the easiest thing to do. However, it is abstain, run away. You know, Chaz has talked about before, if it's porn, like, get the parent lock on your phone, right? Like, the internet lock, and put in random numbers so that you can't unlock certain websites. Like, do whatever you need to do. The scripture says, if your hand is causing you to sin, cut it off. If your eye is causing you to sin, pluck it out. Anything that's causing you to sin, you need to get rid of that. You got to do whatever it takes. Is that what you were speaking to? If you all had any points on that?
So basically, like, how is that situation impacting our marriage now?
I know Jimmy was saying, like, and even you, Des, you know, okay, I had a child out of wedlock, couldn't see my child when he was born. Jimmy's child was taken away from him for months and things like that. So we've talked about those things. And so I don't want the guys here to focus like, oh, as long as I don't have a child, I'm good. You know, I would love to hear y'all's perspective or even opinion, if you have one, as far as like, okay, cool, now I am married. I am doing things to honor God. I have a wife, we've had a child, but these are still things that we're having to work through as a married couple because of the sins of my past or things that I've did before I met my wife.
Got you. Well, so for me, I would say my wife is built different. So she's amazing. I actually met my wife. My wife I knew my wife before my son was born. She actually worked with her at the job that I ended up getting before he was born. And so we were actually best friends for about 3 years before we started dating, right? She walked me through other relationships. She was always there. She was someone I could always lean on.
Plotting. She was plotting on you.
Well, I was actually plotting because she was in a long-term relationship. Because she's older than me. My wife is actually 4 years older than me. So she was in other long-term relationships, and I was like, you know, when I started working where she was working, when my son was born, I was 19. So she was older, but you know, I was already plotting. Like when I met her, I was telling my roommates like, yo, I'm gonna marry her one day. But I was already plotting or whatever. But we was best friends for 3 years. So she's been there from the beginning. So I will say this: it's been easy for me in a sense because she's always been there. She's been there from the very beginning. She knew that I was going to court. She kind of was there for all of that, so she knew. But when we did get married, I think some of the stuff she still was somewhat shielded from a lot. So when we did get married, it did impact us. So I would say this, like, for example, and I'll give you a recent example. So I just got out of another court case. I've been to court about my son maybe like 8 times since he's been born. He's 13. So every couple years, I'm having to go back to court to fight for something. She will take him from me for 3 months. She won't let me see him. Blah blah blah. I'm always having to go back to court. So this last particular time, she didn't let me see or talk to my son for 8 months. I was supposed to get him for an entire summer. Blah blah blah. She didn't let me do that. So I had to take her to court. This like a couple months ago. We just got done with a court case. But the way that impacts my marriage now is, for example, me and my wife, a lot of times we'll make plans. So, for example, when we 2 years into marriage, we want to purchase a home. Well, babe, we gotta wait on that because I gotta go spend 15, 20 grand fighting for my son. You know what I'm saying? So like, for example, like this last particular court case, you know what I'm saying, I had funds earmarked for certain things for me and my wife. Well, no, I just had to go spend 15 grand on this past court case I was just at. You know what I'm saying? So like things like that, those are the type of ways that we're impacted, our marriage is impacted, but because my wife is who she is, you know, she's been amazing, she's always supportive, and a lot of times you don't get that, you know what I'm saying? I can see the other side of that, you know, like she could easily be like, look, you either gonna have to choose him or you gotta choose me, because that's money I'm taking out of her pocket, you know what I'm saying? That's money I'm taking out of my daughter's pocket. You know, my daughter, she's in private school, she does extracurricular activities, like that's a lot to be doing, to be like, you know, I'm impacting the rest of my family, you know what I'm saying? So in that way, I think that's one of the things that, just looking back, how my past sins could really affect the future, you know, depending on who you're with, who your wife is. So
That's good. As we get ready to wrap up, did you have any?
Nah, I pretty much second that.
Yeah. Okay. Really quickly, I want to open up to see if you all had any questions, comments, concerns about anything that you all want to maybe ask questions about or anything like that from some of you all in the crowd.
Nobody have anything? Well, one
Okay.
thing I will, oh, go ahead.
And we got another one over there.
my parents, they were hurt because I put them through a lot of pain by dealing with her. Like, so when I was, this is like a red flag that y'all should pay attention to. So when someone, if you're dating someone and they start to change you or start to separate you from your family, that's somebody you don't need to be with. So that was kind of the case with me. She would start to be like, why you talk to your mom so much? Why you talk to your family? Like, you don't got to spend time with them. When somebody starts to do that and starts to like try to rip you apart and separate you and
That's a
isolate
good point. That's a good point.
that's not somebody you want to deal with. So I had put them through so much pain just throughout the entire time I was dating her. So when we had broke up, it was like a relief to the family. You know what I'm saying? It was a relief to everybody. It was like, cool. Like
man, finally, Dez is
Dez
out of
finally
there.
knowing her. He good.
He's back.
Yeah, he's back. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I mean? But
Dang.
but then when I told them, it was
Dang.
more of a like just a hurting. You know, so they wasn't necessarily. I mean, so my dad was pretty upset. My mom, she's just more just like hurt, like dang, you know, kind of like how I was. I'm like, dang, I thought I was good. I thought I had gotten off. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, I thought, you know, God had showed me mercy. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was good. But so it was almost like, dang, you know. But my parents from day one, even them, like they've always like, for me in my situation, I've had a very good support system. Like I was still able to go to school. I still graduated. I was still able to do a lot of the things that I wanted to do because I had such a good support system. And so in that aspect of my situation, it's different. So I still had like all those experiences that anybody else in college would. It was different because I had that support system.
So they supported you and stuff.
Right.
Really good, but they was still, that was.
It was just, it was a hurt.
Yeah, it was a hurt.
It was just like, man, just like, you know.
Yeah.
And more so of a situation like, I hate that my son's not gonna have to go through that. But then also too now, kind of what Chaz was talking about, how it affects your family, like my wife and my daughter now, it also affects the rest of your family. So like, they're his grandparents. When I don't see him, like think about it, if I don't see him for 8 months, they definitely ain't seen him. They definitely ain't talked to him. And
I
so
ain't
they're
think
not
about
having,
that.
you having to deal with those effects as well. Like,
Dang.
grandparents are attached, you know what I'm saying? Especially when like, it got to the point where like, especially when I was in college, they did watch him a lot. They built a relationship with my son because they were a lot of times there because I had to go to school. You know, so I was trying to graduate to make sure I could take care of my family. So it's like that attachment that they had, it also plays a part as well. So
Yeah, that's tough. Yeah, Walt had a question. You got yours? You figured out? Okay, so we'll get you after Walt, and then Josh. Oh, that's a good question.
I wouldn't say immediately, but you're definitely right. Between military campus, college, I mean, I'm sure it's the same exact thing. As a lot of times, like men as the foundation, and for you guys, it's gonna be women like wanting and coming after you, right? That's just kind of the way it's gonna be designed. But you have to be strong enough to understand if it's somebody you want, you'll pursue them. For me, I don't know if it was immediately, but it was definitely next relationship I get in. You know, next relationship I get in is definitely gonna be my wife. I'm not going through that again. Like I learned quick.
Okay.
Like I bumped my head and I learned quick.
Yeah, that's a good point. Something really quickly before you speak, that Walt said. You remember the stat that we showed earlier, and it said that 70% of all teenage pregnancies or pregnancies come from single-parent households, right? And then in America, we have the highest rate of fatherless homes in the world. We're like 23%, and the world's average is 7%, right? In the black community, it's even higher. It's like 70% of our young women don't have dads. And so a lot of times, those girls are out here sleeping with other people because they're trying to fill a fatherless void, right? That you can't feel. None of y'all can feel that at all. And so you thinking a lot of times that they may just be thoughts or whatever it may be, but they got deeper issues, and you don't want to get involved with those deeper issues, and now you're getting, STDs, spiritual STDs from them because of all the people they sleeping with as well. And so it's really, if you really look at it, it's deep. It gets really deep, and so you got to be aware of that as well.
So to answer Walt's question, I did not mature immediately at all. The only thing that I learned was like I needed to use protection. I learned that. I was like, oh, okay, cool. I know what to do now. But nah, I did like Jimmy said. Unlike Jimmy, the next relationship I got in, I knew I wasn't about to get married. So I was still I was still doing what I was gonna do. You know what I mean? And that wasn't until I didn't stop doing what I was gonna do until I met my wife. Well, until we started dating 3 or 4 years later. So
remember,
yeah.
It's smart to learn from your decisions, but it's even wiser to learn from other people's decisions. All right?
I just wanted to ask, because you said she kind of manipulated you, like the girl.
You said it one time?
I said I wanted to ask because you said she manipulated you in a way, like she lied or whatever. Like, how do you spot, how do you kind of see if a girl manipulating you? Because it's like a lot of girls nowadays, a lot of people nowadays, they do stuff like they're on the edge, like they smoke, they drink, and they come from good housing or they do good in school, but they'll still do these other things because now it's like more accepted. So like, how do you like spot like, okay, like how do I pick the right one? Like, not necessarily for marriage, but like just like so I don't gotta worry about my kid getting taken.
Right. I mean, just different stuff. Like I said, if somebody starts to change you, to change the values you have, and starts putting that stuff on you. You know what I'm saying? Like in my situation, like I said, she started separating me from people, my friends, like people around me, everybody around me. It was just crazy. That's why I say you gotta listen to the red flags. Everybody around me was like, yo, she ain't it. Like, she's straight, but she ain't it. And I was like, nah, man, we good. You know what I'm saying? I ain't listening to nobody. Like my best friends, my brother, everybody. Like we would hang out. My brother would be like, Dez, I don't like her, bro. She good, bro. Like what you talking about? You know what I'm saying? So you can spot those type of. You know what I'm saying? Like that's what I mean. Like it's gonna be something in you that be like, nah, this ain't it. And I would be real. I felt that. But the type of person I was at the time, I was like, I don't care. Like, I'm gonna make it. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna make it happen. You know what I mean? And
Stubborn.
Yeah, I was stubborn. But just different things like that, like isolation. She's changing the way, like she's changing who you are to your core. Like if you find yourself doing totally or acting totally different, you know what I'm saying? Like kind of like he said, he was dealing with a girl and he was taking on her personality. That's the same thing happened to me. I was a very cool, calm, collected type guy. I started dealing with her, now I'm going off on people. Like people, you could just say something to me, I'm just going off on you. I'm talking reckless, you know what I'm saying? Like stuff like that.
That's good. All right. Well, service is wrapping up and is almost out. So if you have any other questions, they'll be right here so you all can come up and kind of chop it up with them about it. One thing I will say as well, though, is like if they ain't got godly principles, right, it's automatically going to be manipulation because it's a human that's involved in that situation. And if they're not following God's ways, then it's automatically going to be some type of manipulation in it because it's manipulation. And it needs to be, you need to follow God's way, right? And that's how you really start to spot some of those red flags. But just because she go to church, don't mean she the one, all right?